let's talk about the Nubian temples of Wadi es Sebua. Part of it was underwater at some stage and was at great risk of completely becoming submerged and was moved, much like Philae was moved from one island to another, but this place was moved inland. The old photos show the tip of the crown of a sphinx, while even older paintings show the ruins covered in sand. And it's interesting to compare the old paintings and pictures with the way it looks today. And the place is an interesting place, and it's memorable mostly for two reasons. And the first is those incredibly beautiful sphinxes that line the entrance. And the second is the quality of the art that's inside the building on the wall. And this is thanks to it being used as a Christian church and the art being covered in heavy but essentially a protective layer of plaster. I mean, they wanted to cover it up so they didn't have to look at it and they could paint Christian things on the top, but it was essentially preserving this art beautifully. But neither of those two reasons is the reason that I find them so very interesting. And the thing that I find interesting are the things that you see depicted on the walls. Anyway, the temples date from around 3,350 years ago, with the first temple being built by Amenhotep III, so he was 18th dynasty, and another temple by Ramesses II, aka Rameses the Great of the 19th dynasty. And if you've checked out any of my other episodes, especially ones on the Osireion and how it pertains to the life of Ramses, then you'll be aware that I'm very interested in the things that Ramses was interested in. Basically, I think that any place that Ramses has paid any attention to has got to have more to it. And in this case, it does. So the temple that was built by Amenhotep III, by the way, he was the father of Akhenaten, the rebel pharaoh. Anyway, it was restored and no doubt thoroughly investigated by Ramses, who then proceeded to build another temple for himself. And that temple's known as the Temple of Ramesses Meriamun in the domain of Amun. And this place is located approximately 150 kilometers south of Aswan on the western bank of the Nile. The temple was also used as a key for boats that were passing along their way down the Nile. The temple was partly freestanding, made from stone blocks, and partly cut directly into the surrounding rock. And there's also some work done in mud brick, but there's very little of that remains. And these three techniques also give us a bit of a clue. What are they doing using three different building techniques like that? But anyway, let's keep going. Another interesting clue that's found here to substantiate my theory on the Osireion is the clue that between the legs of the Sphinx, there is a statue, and it's an image of Ramses, and there's an inscription that reads, Ramses, Lord of said festivals, as his or her Ptah father. And this saying actually refers to the longevity of the pharaoh. And there's another inscription on one of the doors which reads, Ramesses Meriamun, Lord of said festivals like Ptah. So this means that no one else has had more said festivals or will have more said festivals. And if you don't know what a said festival is, let me tell you. Once a pharaoh had ruled for 30 years, they had to prove to their people that they were still capable of ruling. So on a regular basis, after those 30 years, maybe every 3 or 4 years, they had to basically do some pretty exhausting stuff to demonstrate that they were still more than capable. And of course, Ramesses did that far more times than anybody else. And hence, he is basically the lord of the Heb Sed, which is the Sed festival. So he had more than anyone. And obviously nobody caught up with him either. So quite an achievement. Another weird aspect of this site are the depictions of Ramesses making offerings to the gods. That he also has a depiction of him making an offering to himself as a god. And that's a bit unusual. And this indicates that he believed himself either to be a god or he expected he would become a god in the future. So that's kind of odd, as I said. And as for things I found most interesting, they are the platforms on which the gods sit. Now, some of them just look like the regular platforms that you see in all the other ancient Egyptian sites. But there are some of those platforms that don't look like ground-dwelling platforms. They're curved on the base, and they look as if they could actually move. And the way that they've described this platform, they painted it onto the wall, is the exact item that I've described in episodes about 2 years ago on the stoneworking techniques of Atlantis. And those same platforms were also in the episode on the story of King Solomon's son, which came directly from the Kebra Nagast, which is an Ethiopian Bible. So these various aspects, they just seem to me that it's just a few more bits of evidence that supports the things that I've been saying. And it looks to me like it was another site where there might have been remnants of the ancients, which took Ramses' interest because he was always looking at any of the sites that seemed to be from the very, very old times, as did his father. And he lived a ridiculously long time compared to other pharaohs. And in one of my episodes on the Osireion, I theorize it's because of his relationship with the Osireion. So just a few interesting things, and it's a small site, but an interesting site. Okay, thanks for that. Bye.